Hello, it is Monday, June 1st. And for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Mark Brian Sona. I'm an actor, writer, playwright, and I have a theater company. I also work as an interpreter. And I've been doing a vlog of my daily musings while living with this coronavirus. And the plus number indicates how many days I've been doing these series of videos as a record keeping of what has now become a historic event in the United States. Besides the coronavirus, of course, we have the rebellions, the protests / riots, but really it's a rebellion. People have had enough and are wanting to institute changes. Word got out last night after I'd done the video that President Trump hid in the White House bunker Friday night when the protests were right by the White House. He scurried like a little rat into the basement of the White House because, they had to protect the president. He couldn't confront what was going on. He has been adding so much fuel to this fire with his rhetoric. And to find out that he cowardly hid in the basement of the White House, you reap what you sow. And of course, today he made this major announcement, that he's going to try to bring into the army, into the the armed forces are to patrol the United States, basically creating a police state. Because he's wants to squelch all this dissent that is out there and put some order back to the chaos that he fermented and sowed, which is ridiculous. Who gives a shit now what he says? I mean, he proved himself that he can't lead. I mean, the man, we have no leader in this country. He talks the talk, or he has a lot of bluster, but he's lost control of this country. He has just lost control of this country. It'll be the governors and the mayors of the cities that will put us back together. But the president has lost all control. And it's very obvious in his rhetoric. He gave a 6-minute speech. He spent about 30 seconds about condolences for George Floyd. But the rest of the time, he ratcheted up the rhetoric attacking the American citizens that are rightfully protesting, and then spinning. He always talks about fake news, but he's the one who's always sending out fake news. I mean, he even mentioned the one incident in Dallas in which he said somebody was left, a white man was left bleeding on the street, failing to ignore that the fact is that this man wielded a machete, ran and chased somebody in the crowd, and the crowd overtook him. And yes, they beat him to a pulp. But even this man from the hospital, supposedly was defending his property. He wasn't defending the property. He didn't live in the neighborhood. He was defending his favorite bar. And he actually posted something on a social media account saying that was a really bad idea on his part, but he's doing well. He's just a little beaten up. But he spun it in the national speech as if, whites are being so attacked. So he added to the racist issue, the racism, that bad black people are attacking good white people. He's fomenting this in his speeches. And of course, his followers drink the Kool-Aid. I wonder what flavor Kool-Aid it is. It must be really good because they keep drinking from that Kool-Aid package. They keep mixing it up, and he keeps mixing up new batches, and they keep drinking it. It's so ridiculous. But the thought that a coward of a president had to hide, he hid in a basement while the country burned. The country's on fire, and he's hiding in a basement. All I can think of is the only leaders that I remember in my history books and in my recent memory that were hiding in trenches from their people: Saddam Hussein. Hitler died in a bunker. Supposedly the leader of the free world is hiding in a bunker in his own country because of the mess he's made. I mean, they're calling him Bunker Bitch Boy now, which is appropriate. This man is just worthless. Absolutely worthless. And here now I'm living under a curfew. And all those people that screamed about the COVID-19 restrictions were impacting their lives so horribly. We're now under fucking curfew from all the cities have done it. those pussy boys with those big AK-47s are hiding in their home because black people are out on the streets protesting. And they're afraid they're going to be attacked. Goes to show you and it plays into the stereotype of the big black man might do something to the poor white guy. So it's perpetuating this racist viewpoint. But the majority of the country is onto it. Most of my white friends see the hypocrisy, see the blatant racism, see the race baiting. And they're sick of it too, because you know what? Most of us have friends of different skin tones now, because the world has progressed. We're not as desegregated in our personal lives in America. There's still this large faction of white people that choose to remain in their bubble. But most of us that live in a city deal with people of all races, all type ethnicities, and we have learned people are people. So this race baiting is just so obvious now, and it's pathetic, and it's sad. And the president is using all these racial terms. In his national speech, he dropped the word thugs. When's the last time you heard thugs be used towards an Asian man or a white woman? It's always used now. Back in the days of the mafia taking over the country in the 20s and early 30s, you heard the term, and it usually was geared towards Italians, which were seen as inferior. Now it's used towards people of color, especially blacks. And he uses that language on a national address because he's firing up his base, because that's all he's got, and his base is shrinking. It is a sad day in America when the president hides from his people. We're the wealthiest third world country out there, because that's what it's become. We're not the democracy that we claim to be, with the president wanting to call out the army to control the country. Totalitarian governments do that. Totalitarian governments wield the army to control the population, and that's what the president just called for. So America has been inching towards fascism and a totalitarian government. And we're getting closer. He made the call for it. And, we used to condemn countries whose leadership would do what the president just asked his army and the armed services to do. We've condemned countries where they barrel the armies to squelch the protests of people on the street. We have a history of condemning those countries, and we now have become one of those countries. So, unfortunately, he still has all of his little minions and enablers that will support him. But I hope the generals and the sergeants and the colonels and the armed forces don't follow his lead and his request. That would be a total insurrection in this country, because he's supposed to lead the armed forces as a president. But what he has requested is what totalitarian governments do to their people. Yes, there's problems with looting, but he keeps wanting to blame it just on the left. He fails to mention that some of this is also on the right. The far right. He's quick to condemn Antifa, anti-fascists. He's condemning anti-fascists. People who are against fascism. He's condemning them. But he said nothing about the KKK. He has said nothing about the white supremacy groups or the neo-Nazis that are fomenting this unrest in this country. He remained silent on that. And silence speaks volumes. whom you don't talk about many times is because you tacitly support them, but you just don't want to vocalize it. If you're against people that are extremists, you need to name all of them, not cherry pick who it is and forget to mention the far right. So again, he's signaling his base that their viewpoint on the world and how this country should run, he approves. So, national TV. This president is not a leader. He can't lead this country because there's too much dissent now. And it's going to escalate again. Things calmed down yesterday in Dallas. There was some 70 some odd arrests last night, but it wasn't as chaotic. I think the police departments are starting to get the message because there's so much coverage over their abusive ways of treating the protesters. You know, when you have so many reporters get shot at with rubber bullets or gassed by tear gas, and they are clearly wearing their badges, and it's being seen on national TV, how the police is targeting the press. Not all of them. You know, it becomes so painfully obvious that somebody directed them to do it. It cannot be just, oops. There might be an oops here and then, but, you know, I watched last night when a reporter got shot live on camera, and he had the cameras and the lights on him, and he had the microphone, and you saw the police officer aim at him from right behind him and then just shoot him, and then shoot towards the cameraman. There was no other protesters around him. They took aim at him. It's obvious what's going on in this country. The police is scared shitless, which they deserve to be. Now they're getting a taste of the medicine of what the black population in this country has to go through. They're getting to experience fear of unjustly being targeted. No, they're justly being targeted because they've put up with the racism in their departments. You can have a good cop, but if he knows of a bad cop and lets that bad cop to continue doing things, that is really not a good cop. There's bad apples in every organization, but most organizations get rid of their bad apples. If you allow them to stay there, that means you're tacitly approving of what they're doing. And that's what's happened with the police in this country. Over 200 cities this weekend. At first I thought it was 73. It came out, it was over 200 cities had protests. That's enormous. Every state in the union had protests. People have had enough. That's why I say this is not a protest anymore. It's a rebellion. We're sick and tired of, someone said, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you know what was interesting? The mayor of Seattle, I can't remember her name. She was being interviewed live on TV, and she gets it. She was able to succinctly express why this is happening in the country and what needs to change, the institutional changes that need to happen. She totally got it. And she admitted that even under her tenure, that she should be more proactive and start affecting those changes. Joe Biden, who I'm not a big supporter of, you know, I was not big on him, but I'm not voting for Trump. I heard him today talk to several mayors from across the country. I just stumbled across it. And I have to say, for someone who's not been a big supporter or not been very gung-ho about Joe Biden, he was eloquent. Of course, he has a stuttering problem. So you have to know that since he stutters, it's never going to come out crystal clear. But he was also able to, in a few short words, like I can't do it in a few short words, capture the essence of what has been festering in this country that has caused this. And like Nancy Pelosi the other night, you know, when she said, we can't just go back to normal because normal didn't work. Normal caused this. We need to find a new normal. And he basically was saying the same thing in his own words, that this has to be a permanent change. Once everything settles, we need to now reevaluate all the systemic structures of our government that have allowed the economy to be counterproductive towards the lower class and the poor class, which also disenfranchises minorities. And it's at all levels, everything from grade school education, what is taught and how it's taught in schools, even in the primary schools. It was fascinating to hear him talk because I was like, dude, you're really thinking on a grand scale of what needs to happen to change this country for the better. And he admitted that it'll be very difficult because he's going to get a lot of pushback on it. But he said this problem won't get solved unless we attempt to make these changes. So, I wasn't warm on Biden, but after hearing him talk to these mayors, I think even the mayors are a little bit surprised by the reactions of their faces. Like, this dude gets it. He actually has been listening to what's been going on and gets the problem. So I can now say I will support. I mean, I feel more comfortable supporting Biden now. It isn't just a protest vote against Trump anime. I was like, dude, you earned my vote today. You actually earned my vote today. So good for him. I mean, I used to like him years ago, but I don't know. I fell out of love with him and I've remained that way. But, there you have it. But it is a sad day in America because Biden as a candidate was more presidential and had more to say and inspiring to find our better selves. Trump isn't capable. He's just not capable. And it's so obvious now. I mean, the man, I know there's that constitutional amendment where they can just basically say you need to go. But, he has managed to surround himself with the yes men and yes women. But anybody who watches him talk now, anybody that knows the president hid in the basement of the White House while the country burned. We don't have a president anymore. We got a buffoon with a title. Sad day in America. Say please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Thank you for a couple new people that became subscribers. Thank you. And if you watch this tonight, have a good evening. And if you see this tomorrow, good afternoon. And good morning if you see it in the morning or in the afternoon. And I'll do my little here that I always do at the end. And just to think, my neighborhood is all my business. Most of the businesses are all boarded up around me. And everything's closed again because of the curfews. And the businesses are trying to protect themselves because of the chaos. All right.